Anyway, I want to talk about one more thing before we get into the news worth knowing. And you know how I like to watch movies, but I've been on a tear about them lately, so I'm only going to do one this week. And it's because I saw this poster for the movie 1986 movie The Wraith, and EK could pull up the Wraith image. This 1986. Now look at that poster. Don't you want to see that movie based upon that poster alone? And that's how they got me. You know, that looks like an awesome movie. But unfortunately, not so much. I mean, it was a really cool concept. It was, but it was poorly executed. I thought poorly executed, and I didn't like where the story went, especially at the end. I think it could have been way cooler than it was. However, the basic concept was pretty cool. Picture this. It's 1986 in the roads of New Mexico. It's some strange lights in the sky form on the highway, and a really strange concept car goes by. Ooh, weird setup. All right, next thing you know, you got a couple of guys in 1986, hot rods, stock car hot rods. You got a Corvette, you got a Dodge supercharged Daytona or whatever, like I know cars. And they're like racing for pink slips and stuff like that. It's like, apparently it's a place in 1986 New Mexico that thinks it's in 1958 New Mexico. Anyway, so they're racing for pink slips. And there's this bully, he's like 6'3" or something like that. And he's the only guy who carries a switchblade. Apparently nobody else can get a switchblade in this town. And so he bullies everybody else. And so that's just kind of the setup. And so this Wraith thing shows up, and they start racing against this strange concept car that nobody's ever seen before. It's called a Lexus or something. And so they're racing against this guy, and bad things happen to anybody who races this guy. Let's just put it that way. And I don't want to spoil the plot. I know sometimes I usually do, but I mean, I want to talk about the actors in this film, because I thought it was interesting seeing these actors in this particular time. First of all, it stars Charlie Sheen. Now, 1986 Charlie Sheen is like, wow, what a good-looking kid he was. You know, it's understandable. It's like you look back over Charlie Sheen's career and you understand why he got as much work as he did. I mean, he was a really good-looking guy, and so and it's interesting where he is now, and so it's like, what happened to you? What happened to you, poor guy? What happened to you, Chuck? I know Hollywood's a weird place, and so, it can chew you up and spit you out. So I thought that was interesting because Charlie Sheen, but I didn't think his performance is particularly notable. I didn't think he was more of a pretty face at that point. The bully, I forget the name they gave him. Anyway, was played by Nick Cassavetes. And like I said, he's like 6'3", 6'4", something like that. And watching a guy who's 6'3", 6'4" climb into a Corvette is always funny. Because if you know anything about Corvettes and how low they are, especially like in 86, and how small they are. So watching a guy that tall get into a Corvette is always funny. And because the reason is the guy who's that tall, they usually drive trucks, so they could just slide into, from standing position. Guys who are that tall do not like getting down into a go-kart, all right? Randy Quaid was in there. He played the police officer. And Clint Howard was in there playing the weird ugly guy. But the one actress I want to talk about is the gorgeous Sherilyn Fenn. Now, Sherilyn Fenn, you can go ahead and bring her up. She was much younger than this, but this is the best picture I found of her on the internet. And look, that's a 10, right? That's a 10. All right? And she's been beautiful for a long, long time. And so I showed EK a clip. If you want to go see this clip, go on YouTube and search shameless lip massage scene. All right. And in that scene, Sherilyn Fenn, who's much older than she was in this movie, gives a foot massage to her grandson. And I find it to be weird. I find it to be hilarious and a little bit sexy, that scene. All right. Because it's Sherilyn Fenn. It's this gorgeous hottie right here. All right. And when I first saw that scene, I had to, because I knew that like mole, that little beauty mark on the side of her face. It's like, I've seen that before. That's a recognizable feature. So I went and Googled like cast of Shameless and like who played the grandma, Sherilyn Fenn. And I went and read through her filmography or whatever, everything she's done. It's like, oh, that's where I saw her. That's where I saw her. And The Wraith was one of her earliest films. And in that, she's more blondish, like blonde and brown, and her eyes just didn't pop like they do when she was brunette. Anyway, what a gorgeous lady. Anyway, like I said, I don't want to ruin the plot, but I mean, it was such a cool concept, and they just crap the bed. It's more of a love story than anything. It's interesting because in 1986, it's not the kind of movie my parents would let me watch when I was 9, 10 years old and so forth, because there was boobies, there was violence, there was racing cars recklessly. I thought it was funny because I wish I could. Packard was Nick Cassavetes' role in that movie, and he was like, it's just a tall bully who carried a switchblade, and like I said, like apparently nobody knew how to get a switchblade, nor did anyone know how to conspire. So everyone in town is being bullied by this guy, and no two people ever said, hey, let's jump him, take away his switchblade, beat the piss out of him, and says, you're not getting your switchblade back until we feel that you can respect other people. Because that's what you do with people like Packard. But apparently that never works.